All right, folks, welcome back to another exploded figure review. Today we are looking at Belualith from the Necronominus wave. There is a lot in this package, so let's get right into it.
You best get ready, cause now it's time for Art by Akerman.
So this is a figure that came out in the Necronominus wave. She's actually one of the children of Necronominus. And she's also this kind of Beastmaster, kind of beast tamer. So in addition to all the things that she comes with, she also controls the Terpiculi that we looked at earlier this year. So pretty cool character. There's a lot of stuff in this package. So we're gonna kind of get into this. First off, this is how she looks in package. So just the way that it's together when you first get it, as well as when you first pull those trays out and take a look. So you can see there's just a lot of stuff in here. And then once you break it down into all the individual parts, this is what it looks like. So, we're going to start on this side with this cage, which a lot of people refer to as a bird cage, but the bird actually doesn't fit into it. This has the snake in it, but it is a cage. So really well done. It's kind of a flex material here. It's a little bit, it's not super solid. It's got this clip that goes into the top like that, but it also pulls out pretty easily. So it's, there you go. Then it has this piece here. It's like a piece of wood, like a part of a tree or something that they've attached here, that you can have something, perched on or whatever inside of the cage. And then you've got this bottom base piece that is really nicely painted. It looks like wood grain. It's pretty cool. And then this just kind of plugs onto that. And then the cage just kind of plugs in on top. So you end up with this look here, and if you hold it from the top, it doesn't fall out. Like, you can shake it all you want, but when you try to pull it apart, it pulls apart very easily. So really good job of manufacturing to where all of these pieces go together, they'll stay together, but it's not hard to get apart, but it will stay together while you've got it on display. So really cool engineering on that. So take that back apart. Then inside of that cage, you have this snake. And it would have been cool if this was wired. It is not. It's just kind of a, like a flexible material. So you can kind of move it, but it kind of tends to go back where it was. Now, what you could do is you could heat this up. So you could put this in like some really hot water, or even potentially like heat it up with a heat gun or hair dryer and try to, kind of mold it into a different shape like that. And it probably will maintain that shape if you do that. But right out of the package, this is kind of what you're looking at. The head doesn't articulate either. There's nothing, but once again, if you heated it up, you could, probably get that into a different pose and go from there. So, but really nice bone color that we've seen on a lot of the, skeletons from the Necronominus wave. So that's what that looks like. Next, we have the bird. So the bird is attached to this like protector for her arm. It has this like reddish brown leather with a more kind of a dark brown strap on it. And then you've got this like metal perch at the very top of it with like a little rivet there. And then the bird itself is just kind of a fully skeletal bird with some feathers coming out the back end there. You then have a couple wings. The wings are some of those pieces that are not really kind of meant to pop out, but with heat they will. So I'll do my best to kind of pop these back in here, but probably gonna need to glue them to get them to stay. And then on the other side, got this one. And it still has some feathers on it. So apparently, much like skeletons still grow like beards from their skull, apparently the birds in Mythos, when they die, apparently they still maintain some of their feathers. So this is the overall look that you get on there. It's really cool. You do have some articulation in the head a little bit, but it doesn't have, because this piece is so small, it doesn't have a whole lot of depth in it to get onto this neck peg. So you do get some articulation, but if you move it too much, it just pops off. But everything else is kind of static. So that's the look that you get from that thing. So really cool piece. It's a little bit too big to have, even if it did come off of this, it's a little bit too big to fit in this cage. You can see, it's pretty tall, but it still would have been nice if this thing did unplug from the bracer so that you could take it off and put it other places. Like if there were pegs in the feet that went into it, but there's not. Now, as a customizer, you could definitely, if you wanted to, you could heat this up, take an X-Acto knife and kind of cut the feet off, cut the feathers off, and go from there. But then that's kind of a permanent solution. So, small gripe on here, but it would have been cool if this was removable. Going into Belualith herself, you've got two different heads with two hair pieces. So these are the heads, and this is the whole nose, no nose debate. Which one am I going to go with? I guess you'll have to find out during fast motion. But both of these are painted by Sherry from the studio. She did an amazing job. I love that it's not just like one blue. Like there's definitely several different blues in there with the shading and highlights. And then kind of your like decrepit parts there that are like diseased. But both of these look fantastic. So there's the two heads. And then they pop into these two hair pieces. Now, essentially these two hair pieces are basically the same. Like as far as the sculpt of them, it's just like, so you see this one's got this strand of hair that's going straight down. This one has a strand of hair that comes out the same spot, but then it's kind of twisted like this. It comes out to the side. Then this one has these two that come down and they just kind of go straight down. This one has these two that come down and then kind of turn. Well, that's essentially the same sculpt. It's just this one they kind of, probably heated it up and just twisted this a little bit. So you get a little bit more movement on this one, whereas this one is straight down. But you could take this one and heat it up and get that to do the same thing, right? So basically the same hairstyle, but they look a little bit different just because of the way that it came out of the box. But I'll show the heads in both of these. So first off, you've got the nose head. We're gonna pop it in this one with the hair kind of more stylized and out to the side. So that's how that looks. Then we've got the other hair that for right now is straight down. So we'll pop this one in this head. And, I kind of put one of the strands back behind her face. So it normally comes down like this in front of her face. So it kind of looks like this. So she's got like the little strand coming right down her face. So that is the nose head in both of those. Next, we'll go to the no nose. So no nose head. We're going to put that in the stylized hair first. So that's how that looks, with kind of the hair off to the side and off to this side. And then we'll do the no nose in the one with the straight hair. And that's how that looks. So I think the no nose probably works better with this where it's going straight down. It's very kind of emo looking, whereas the nose probably works better with the hair that's kind of more flared out to the side. So as far as the hair piece itself goes, it's got a lot of this, like if you read comic books or you've read comic books when you're a kid, a lot of times they do black hair and then do some very light blue highlights for the black hair to really just kind of make it pop. This is like that to the extreme. Like they really went high on the blue highlights on it. So it comes across as more blue hair rather than black with, you know, some light blue highlights or dark blue highlights. So really cool look to her. And then you've got your standard kind of 2.0 neck piece. So nothing too special going on here. It is still that nice, you know, blues that we're seeing in her face there. Going down to the armor, pretty much my biggest gripe with this. This figure was a deluxe figure, which means you paid a little bit more for it, but you are getting a lot in the package. But with a deluxe figure, I would expect more in terms of paint apps on the armor itself. The armor is pretty bland. So this is a torso that a chest piece that we've seen before from 2.0s. Sometimes we'll have like painted details in these like sections over here. Sometimes they'll paint like the ornate details down the middle, or sometimes they'll paint around the ornate details down the middle to where the ornate details pop a little bit. We've got some rivets here and everything. None of this is painted. So this is all just like, I mean, it's painted solid color. It's got the gunmetal look, but no extra details on there. Then you have a barbell that goes from this to the abdomen. So it kind of goes like this. The small end goes up in the top part of the torso. The big ball goes down into the abdomen, which is right here. So that pops in there and that holds those two together and gets you a little bit of this ab crunch. So you can get a little bit of movement here and some twist and stuff there as well. So that's kind of how that goes together. This piece, you know, once again, no extra details other than the gunmetal. Same piece we've seen a bunch in 2.0s. Going into the arms, on the left side, you've got the bare arm, which has a lot of those, you know, blues with the shading and highlights that we saw in the face. So pretty cool on that left arm. That goes into this elbow. Same thing there. And then you've got this bracer. Once again, no paint details. You see like there's some leather straps here with buckles. None of that is painted separately. The rivets aren't painted. So it's just all gunmetal. And then going into the hand, this is the hand that comes on it on the left side. You do have those kind of demon-like nails. This is a gripping hand with a horizontal grip. So it goes side to side. And yeah, so that's there on the left side. Moving to the right side, you've got this kind of standard armored arm that we've seen before on a lot of the 2.0s. No rivets, no straps, no chainmail, no extra details on that. The elbow kind of plugs into the back of this, or the elbow pad, I guess I should say, plugs in the back of this upper arm. So there's a spot here. One of these that is, you know, this is one of those pieces that's not meant to come off, but with a little heat, it does. And it's basically just this kind of spiky, you know, like elbow pad that you've got there. Then that goes into the elbow. The elbow has the chainmail here, but nothing, no extra paint apps or paint hits on there. That goes into this more spiky bracer. So if you take a look at the two bracers, this is the one that comes with more of like the elves and stuff. And then this one is more like with goblins and orcs and things. So two different bracers. This one will get that cover on it with the bird. So kind of makes sense that that arm would be more armored if the bird is kind of flying in and landing on it. So that's the two looks that you get there. And then the other hand that she has on the right side is this one, which is your 2.0 leather hand with like the pad on the back. So there's like a, sometimes you'll see this painted where like this part will be like a brown leather, and then this part will be like a silver plate or a black plate or something with these rivets painted. Here they just painted all one color, as that like that brown leather. Then going down further, you've got this as the waist covering. I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but once again, you got some, straps here, not painted. The buckles, not painted. None of the ornate details painted. So just very, very plain there. Then this goes in underneath of it. This is your kind of like your crotch piece. So the loin would normally go here in the front. You've got a boom boom hole in the back. This is the boom boom cover, which goes like this. So that just kind of plugs in there if you're not putting in a tail. And then your hip joints plug in on either side of this. So, and then there's some soft goods. We'll get into that in a minute. As far as the legs go, you have this upper hip joint on each side. That just kind of plugs into the crotch piece, and then this goes down in the leg, which gives you a little bit of that swivel at the top. And then here's the leg itself, which I really like this. I've heard some people that maybe don't like this, thought this should have been like a blue, like her skin tone. But I really think these are more like leggings, which I think is a cool look. And it's not, at first I thought this was going to be black when I got it, but it really looks like more like a dark chocolate. It's like a really dark brown. And one thing to note on here is that, like, once again, this piece goes into here. I think this is the first time that we're doing a 2.0 review. So this is the first time we're really covering these parts, but this peg is really thick for this leg. And sometimes, because you'll get some paint in here, so when they put this together, sometimes it'll get really stuck. So you want to heat this up so that you can get some of this leg movement this way. Otherwise, it's just going to be very static and you're only going to get like this. So you can either heat it up and pop it apart and then put it back together, or just heat it up enough that you can start twisting it like this so that you can get that extra movement within your figure. But a really cool piece, like that one. That goes into the lower leg. Both of these are the same, so no difference here. I know that the top had to be different because of the bird, so the one side's a little bit more armored than the other. Would have been nice to see that kind of continue down to where have this be more of kind of the spiky armor on the right side and then the more sleek armor on the left, but we got the same on both sides, and no extra paint apps on there. And then going down into the feet, you have these kind of standard for like elves and 2.0 knights and stuff feet. There's a couple different feet for these. There's a bare feet, there's these, and then there's another one that has got like kind of like this hook at the end, almost like elf shoes that they use for like the orcs and stuff like that. One thing to note on here, if you like pull out these ankle joints inside the feet, it'll say like L or R for left and right. If you look at these, you're like, man, is this one a left one or is it a right one? The easy way to know on here is there's this rivet right at the back of the foot. That always goes to the outside. Okay. So the other side, this one has no rivet. This one has the rivet. So that means this is the left foot. On this one, no rivet. So that's the right foot. So that's kind of how that works. Then going into the soft goods, you have these really nice soft goods here. I love this green color. It's like this really dark green, very nice stitch work. Everything is wired. So you got wire down the middle, you got wire across the back, and then this loin piece is also wired all the way along. And it's also cinched here in the middle, which is really cool. It gives it a really nice decorative look. It's not just a flat piece. Sometimes I feel like these, especially for 2.0s, end up being a little bit too long. And they look kind of plain because they're just like one solid piece. But I like how it's cinched together and it's not quite as long. It creates a really good look. And I could definitely see somebody using these soft goods for like a member of Xylona's flock or something like that. It just has a real foresty vibe to it. So, you know, we talked about the kind of lack of paint details on the armor itself, but I think they more than make up for it in some of the pieces with the soft goods. And then we're going to cover some other armor pieces that we have that really do bring in some of those details. So there's the soft goods. Then you've got this shoulder pad that is this like, you know, skull that has you know, once again, the kind of reddish brown leather on it. You've got a little gold rivet here. You've got a silver buckle and gold rivet there. So, you know, with this going over top, you're now starting to bring in some of those individual paint apps and color, right? And then you go into one of the coolest pieces of this figure, which is this belt. So we've started to see a lot of new belts for the 1.0s, but 2.0s haven't really got a lot of new parts in the recent years. This belt is pretty fantastic. I love when a new piece like this comes out and you try to think, okay, well, they're definitely going to get reuse out of this. Where could I see this? And I think I could see this on like an orc, a female orc, a female goblin, maybe, you know, some sort of witch doctor or something. Like there's just, I could see this being used on a few other characters, but it's got this chain that goes across the top and then kind of down the front. You've got that reddish brown leather that we talked about. You've got a bone that comes down the side here, a skull there, a skull here with some like gold ornate details painted around it. On the back, you've got some pouches with some gold rivets on it. And then you've got a few accessories that hang off of this. So first one is this whip. I think this is a really nice addition considering that she is this like Beastmaster kind of, you know, with this menagerie of pets and the fact that she's controlling the Torpiculi, it makes sense for her to have a whip. So here is the handle. It wraps around a few times and then has this like gold loop that would attach to the belt. But what really attaches the belt is there's a little key here on the back of this, and then there's a hole here. This is one of those pieces that's not really meant to come off, but with heat it does, and then it just pops right back on right there. Love that look. My only, you know, I guess going forward, it would be cool if we had like an actual hook coming off of here and a working whip that was like a wired whip that we could wrap around and like hang off of that hook. But if you're keeping it on the figure anyways, you're just gonna have that static look. Like that does look super cool, right? It would be nice down the road if we ended up getting a real whip. You know, maybe somebody out there, one of the third-party people could make one, but I think that would be cool. But that looks awesome like that. Then you have this other skull. So these two are molded to the belt itself. This is one of those pieces that's, once again, not meant to come off, but it does, and it just pops on right here. So there's a little notch there. There's a little keyhole back here, and that just pops onto it. It would have been really cool if they made this a circle hole instead of that like key like that, and allowed it to pop onto the bird body. So it's almost the same size as this. And I think it would have created a different look on the bird if you were able to swap that. It just creates some more swappable options, right? If you were able to kind of pop that on there. So that would have just required this to be kind of more of a circular opening. And then same thing here. Like you could have just put that same kind of ball peg from the bird onto the belt. And that way you could pop this one on there, or you could switch it out for the bird one and have like this look. You know, you could pop that bird head on there instead, and it just creates just a little bit different look on there. It kind of looks something like that. It's hard for me to hold and do, but like that. So I think that would have just been nice in terms of swappability if they would have done that. And if you want to take that even further, you could have potentially made it to where this snake had a a head that popped on as well. If you made it just a little bit bigger, the head, you probably could have put a hole in it similar to the bird and popped it on here. And that would have given you 3 tiny heads that could have been kind of swapped out if you wanted to. But we don't have that. We have this. Now, like I said, as a customizer, you can make whatever work. But yeah, this just pops on there. And then one of my favorite pieces is this little tiny hand. I love this hand. It is so cool. And this is attached to the belt as well. It goes down here at the bottom. So another one of those pieces that's not really meant to come off, but with heat you can. So that's the look of that on the side with that hand coming off of there. And, you know, once again, how are they going to reutilize this? Where are we going to see this hand? I don't know, but I think it's cool. I think for like toy photography, I could see somebody with this like coming out from under a bed, maybe this hand like reaching for somebody's shoulder, or even if you wanted to take a character and give them a strong hand, you know, maybe this would be their strong hand. But yeah, it's just a really neat little hand. You could see this as for a witch doctor, maybe something hanging from a necklace. In this instance, we get it hanging from this belt, and it's just really awesome. So cool nice little accessory there that I wasn't expecting. Then going into the hands, we do have some other hands options. So we already talked about, we've got on the figure, we've got 2 horizontal hinged. The right one is just a fist. It's a leather fist. This one here. The left one is a bare hand that is a gripping hand. So that's what you've got on the figure. And then you come with 2 expressive hands. Once again, they've got those nice claw details with the darker, blue. And then they both have horizontal hinges as well. So far, 4 hands, 4 horizontal hinges. Then if you wanted to switch up and have the left side with a gloved hand, you've got this one here. So this is the brown leather again. This one has a vertical hinge. So it's the only one out of all the hands that has a vertical hinge here. So that's this way. And then you've got one more hand, which is a bare gripping hand for the right side. And that's similar to the one that we already have on the figure on the left side. So 6 hands total, 5 horizontal hinges, 1 vertical hinge. Couple more pieces and then we'll get into the Chimera. So you've got this knife of hers. It's like, it looks like an antler that's on here. You can see kind of the spot at the end where this would have come out of like something's head, like a deer or whatever. Then it's got this like spiky armor at the top. You've got this blade that is really beat up and worn, and it's got some jagged edges and stuff, that is riveted in with 2 little rivets there, holding it to the antler. And I love the paint apps on here. The bone looks great. Some of the grooves in the blade have what looks to be like dirt in it and stuff. Like it looks like this is just old and used, and yeah, just really good paint apps on that blade there. And then you get this bone here, and it comes off of her back and holds that cage. But you could see this being used for other things. Like maybe somebody would have this where they would have the full bone wing on the one side and maybe just like this on the other, like it was a shriveled up wing. You could have this as, just like a bone in a display for like a dio. You're able to have some different looks with this thing. It's just a new little piece that, yeah, it's meant to be this one thing, but what other things could it be by just looking at it? So cool little extra accessory. And then we get into the Chimera. Now, this is where this thing really shines. So we've talked about, the other pets. We've talked about Belualith herself, but this Chimera is freaking cool. So we got 2 heads for it. Then we've got a head that goes on the tail, and then the body of the figure. So we'll start breaking all that down. First, you have this head here. It's got like these fangs in the front. It's a little bit kind of drops off. It doesn't like stick out far, you know, in the front. It kind of drops off and then has these like teeth, almost like maybe like a saber-toothed tiger or something. And then this is the jaw that goes on it, and it has like this open mouth look to it. So it comes looking like that. Once again, this jaw is one of those pieces that's not really meant to come off, but it does with heat. But that's essentially how that looks. But if you take it off, if like I did, you could then potentially open it up more if you wanted to, and then glue it back in place. You could potentially even close it a little bit more if you wanted to and glue it back in place. So it gives you some options. Or if you just wanted to use this as like a dio piece, like on the ground, like a wasteland look. Same thing with this. If you wanted to use that, you could use one of these as like a helmet, you know, Dremel out the inside and use it as a helmet. You have all kinds of different options on here because this comes apart. So that's the first head. Okay, looking at the second head. The second head has this more elongated look with some antlers. I don't know if this is supposed to be like I don't know what this is supposed to be, an antelope, a yak or something. It also has a jaw that is not meant to be removed, but it can be removed. And this one has like a keyhole at the bottom as well as it was attached from the sides. So it kind of looks like this. So it has more of a closed mouth look. But if you detach it, if you do heat it up and pull it apart, you can then create this more open mouth look. You would just have to probably slice off, like get a sharp X-Acto knife and slice off this keyhole. You might need to touch up the paint a little bit, but then you could kind of create an open mouth look if you wanted to on here. So it's got, but this is how it looks like in package. The horns are this like really nice dark color with some wear on it. The head itself has more of that kind of bone color that we've seen throughout Necronominus. A little bit lighter on the teeth on the side here, as well as these teeth in the front. You get these little tiny teeth up there. So another really cool look. So those are the two different heads that the Chimera comes with. Then it has this other one, which is like a snake head that attaches to the tail. And it's got these like mandibles on the side, which once again, one of those pieces that's not really meant to come off, but it does with some heat. And so it looks like this in the package. So it kind of has this look here, right? But then you, like I said, you can pop this off and then you've got like this little extra bone. Like, could you use that for, you know, the sides of a helmet or, you know, on some shoulder armor or whatever. Same thing with the, you know, like the skull itself. Like, could you Dremel this out and use that as a helmet on a skull or a head or something, you know, like something like this. Like just, you know, maybe you use this for a dio piece, like, you know, once again, like a wasteland dio, you put just a little like snake head kind of stuck in the ground like that. These are just a lot of really cool parts. I think this Chimera really is the selling factor of this Belualith because there's so many different parts on this that you could use in a variety of different ways. I think it just adds so much extra like creativity. You know, I can't imagine what all people are going to do with these parts. It's a lot like when we opened up the Terpiculi and we started looking at it and we said, hey, you know, look at all these different bones it has and, you know, the different formations and way that you can kind of put this together. Like, I think it's just going to create a lot of, I don't know, really cool things where people are just going to look at it and go, yeah, it's meant for this, but I'm going to use it for X, Y, or Z. So going down further into, you know, the Chimera body, you've got this double neck peg. This thing is really cool because it works on other figures. So you could pop this into another, like a 1.0 neck joint, and you could pop 2 heads on here. So you could put like a couple skeleton heads on there, or you could put one of these heads and a skeleton head on here if you wanted to. So you can use this for a lot of different things, and I've seen people use this neck attachment with the Terpiculi just to kind of create some different monstrosity looks with that. So really cool, neat piece. I like it a lot. Heck, you could put 2 human heads on here if you wanted to and just create something really wild. So there's that. That goes down into the body, which is here. So this is kind of like a collar piece that plugs into and holds those heads. Should mention, if I didn't already, that both of these heads, this one and this one, are 1.0s. The snake head is kind of its own thing. It's not a 1.0. It's really not a 2.0. If you heat it up, you can kind of get it attached to a 2.0, but it's really kind of smaller than a 2.0. But these two are 1.0s. So it goes into this collar piece that neck does. And then this attaches to this rib cage. So it kind of pops in like this. Like this. And once again, one of these pieces that's not really meant to come apart, but it does. So it kind of goes like, am I getting this right? Like that. So it goes like this. Okay. And then it's got this chain that comes off the back with the handle for her. Obviously this chain could have been removed. There's a link down at the bottom that you kind of open up and take off. But sometimes with these little chains like this, like the little links, if you move them back and forth too much, they just wear out over time. So I didn't want to take it off just for the sake of taking it off, but this could come off obviously if you wanted to. As far as the collar and rib cage, you've got a lot of this like copperish, bronze-ish, it's a bit more copper kind of protector on the collar piece with some bone sticking out of it. You've got on the rib cage, you've got this like, the reddish brown leather that goes down across the bottom and across the middle of the rib cage. Some ornate details with like gold rivets and then this kind of gold ornate detail with the silver in the middle. Another gold rivet on the sides. So really cool looks there. This goes into the spine. So the spine attaches here. Once again, another piece that's not really meant to come off, but it kind of pops on like this, right? And that goes down through the back. Then you've got this back hip joint. Once again, some of that copper armor underneath with the silver rivets. And that pops on, make sure I get this right, like that. So now this is kind of the base body for your Chimera. So you've got some, leg holes in the front, leg holes in the back, the spine that comes through here, the tail pops on here, and then, that snake head would pop onto the end of that. And we'll do all that during the fast motion. So let me pull that off here, put this stuff back. Okay, so looking at the legs, we're gonna start with the front ones. So this is that collar piece that we were looking at before. It's got that armored in the front with the spikes and stuff. And then you've got these front legs for the Chimera that pop into this. I would have to heat this up to pop this in here, which actually I'll do real quick. So give me just a second. Okay. So this is what the front legs look like in there. So you get a little bit of kind of back and forth movement with it. You get, obviously it turns all the way around, but there's no extra articulation. So you got no articulation in what would be like, I guess, the knee, the ankle, the toes. So no extra articulation there, but it does go fully around like this. And then, like I said, a little bit of back and forth. So that's kind of the front movement on it. Then that goes down the spine like we were talking about and into the back hip portion. So this is that back hip portion, and it has these back legs that pop into here. And this one, once again, no articulation throughout here, but you've got the fully, all the way around like this, a little bit of back and forth. Now, these are a little bit different. So I want to show you the two legs. So these are the front legs. These are the back legs. So you can see the back ones kind of go out, then back, then out again, whereas the front ones go kind of back, forward, forward. Okay, so that's the looks that you get on those. But in addition to the shape of them being different, the ball pegs are different on here. Now, this, I wish they did a little bit differently, and I'll tell you why. Okay, so if you look at, I'll tell you what I like and don't like. So like if you look at a standard, like an arm peg, right? You've got this peg that just kind of is a cylindrical shape, kind of comes out with a little nubbin on the end. It's enough to kind of hold it, but it pops apart easily. This has this bigger ball joint on here, which means that you can get a stronger grip with not much space, okay? So this kind of ball joint, I think, would be great in like the wings. So the wings, if you've ever tried to plug wings in, they have kind of this straight out peg like this, but it's not a lot of space in the back adapter. And so they just don't hold. Like sometimes they'll droop down or fall out. This ball design would allow it to pop in and stay, which I think would be awesome for wings. It's also awesome for these legs. The problem is that you have two different sizes here. So you've got one size for the front legs and one size for the back legs. Well, this is what I don't like. If you take a standard figure, right, and you look at this, the back legs here will pop on to a leg spot on a normal torso, right? The back legs will pop into an armhole on a normal torso. So even though this design is different than that design and different than this design, right? So even though this design is different, it will fit into those holes, and it gives you more swappable options. So you could plug this into a torpiculi in a bunch of different places, right? You could pop it into the back. Look at that, right? So this back leg, it gives you all kinds of flexibility in terms of where it goes. This front leg doesn't fit here, doesn't fit here, doesn't fit here. So it doesn't fit really anywhere. So there's not a whole lot that you can do with this. I wish that they would have made this smaller to match this one, just because it would have given you more swappability options. And it would have been pretty easy too. All you had to do in this front section was just make that hole a little bit smaller, and you could have used, this kind of size in here. And I wonder if this will even hold. See, it's just kind of loose. So yeah, all they would have had to do is make this hole just a little bit smaller, make this peg the same size as the back ones, and then you'd have all kinds of swappability with this. But as it is, you don't have that. So back legs, I think, are going to be freaking awesome for a lot of different cool creations with the torpiculi, with regular skeletons, with, whatever. I think these back legs are going to be great. I think the front ones, unless you modify them, only going to be really used for the Chimera, or for this part specifically, because it's the only part that's really going to hold that. So maybe a neck port, but that's still a little loose too. You could potentially make that work in a neck port, but that's really about it. So, so I like the design. I like the ball peg aspect of it, because I think it gives you a tighter grip in a small space. I just wish that they would have made the ball pegs all this size. So, and just for poops and giggles, let me try that in a back adapter. So here is a back adapter. The small ones, the back legs should work in it because it works in the shoulder port. So yeah, so there's that. So I think if they started making wings like this, when you popped it in, I think that you would have no problem articulating it, but having it hold a pose if you needed to, because it just locks into place a lot better than the wings that we currently have today. So this piece is awesome. And then didn't really take a look too much at this. This is the tail that is on the end of the spine here. So once again, this pops on here. This is not a wired piece, so you can't really get a whole lot of movement out of it. It is that that plastic that if you heated it up, you could mold it. I would just be very cautious on here because of these little individual vertebrae that you don't melt any of them. So I'd be very careful if you used a hairdryer or heat gun. It probably might be better to use some hot water if you wanted to heat and mold this a little bit and kind of change the shape. But this goes into this head here, and you kind of get that look there coming off the tail. Another thing here, I don't know that they really could have done anything different. This is a 2.0 neck adapter. You could kind of heat this up and get it in there a little bit, but it's not going to go all the way because this thing is just so small. So, you know, this isn't as swappable of a piece as those, because those will pop on any 1.0 neck peg. This one is, you know, you could get it on a 2.0, but it's going to look kind of awkward. So I don't know that this has as many swappability options, but it's really because this piece is just so small and so thin that you really couldn't get another neck peg in there. So I don't know that there's much that they could have done with this to make it better. It's a cool piece as is. It just doesn't have a lot of swappability options. So that is everything going through this. I'm gonna just highlight some of the pieces because this is, man, I'll tell you right off the bat, I was a little intimidated to do this one. I've waited a while to do it because there's just so much here that I wanted to make sure that I did it justice. And I've actually re-recorded this episode like 4 times because, you know, I'll find one more thing or 2 more things or something I said doesn't really match up. And so I have to keep kind of looking back at this and make sure I'm giving you guys the proper information. But I'm going to just call out a few pieces that I think are going to be very useful, very utilized. Number one is this belt. So this belt, I think, is probably one of the coolest pieces in here. The fact that you get this extra, like the whip here, you get this extra skull that goes on it, you get this extra strong hand that goes on it. This belt with all of those accessories is just a super cool piece that I could see utilized on a bunch of different characters. I could see all of these individual pieces being used for different characters and different things. That belt is just awesome. This pauldron is super cool. This gives you, like, you know, you could see this on a barbarian, you know, some sort of wasteland figure. This is just another really cool new piece. Those 2 pieces, I think, are going to be used all over. This neck peg, double neck peg, we've already seen some really cool creations with it. I think you're going to, in fact, I'll show one here. This is from a creation that's put together from Billy Beige Customs, Will White. He did this like crazy Terpiculi thing. And I think you're going to see this used in a lot of figures just because it gives you something that we don't have, which is this 2-headed neck that could be used on a bunch of different things. You could even potentially see this utilized where somebody would put some green stuff on here and mold it into, you know, make it a snake neck, or make it into a double-headed orc or double-headed ogre or whatever. This is just a really cool, you know, neck peg that I could see used in a bunch of different places. So that's a piece that I think is going to get utilized a lot. Both of these heads, so the 2 heads that go on the Chimera, I could see used in dios, in other figures, in Terpiculi monstrosities, all kinds of things. The snake head, well, I think it's the coolest of the 3 heads. I don't think it's going to get utilized as much just because there's not a lot of neck pegs or ball joints that are going to fit into it. So that one's going to be a little rougher to use, but I think it is the coolest of the 3 heads. And then these back legs. These back legs are awesome. I love the fact that they will fit in a Mythic Legion leg hole. They will fit in a Mythic Legion armhole. They will fit in a Mythic Legion back hole, shoulder hole. It'll fit in a back adapter. Like, this is just, there's just so many different options with this. I think that's going to be really cool. Will it fit in a boom boom hole? Let's see. It doesn't go in all the way, but yes, it will fit in there. It just doesn't, I don't feel like it goes deep enough, but look at that. You can boom boom hold this back leg. This back leg, this peg on here, I wish this was the standard peg for everything that we got for arms, legs, wings. I wish this was the standard peg for everything that we got. This thing is awesome. And I don't know, you know, it may be something where because it's not articulated that you're able to get that ball, and maybe you can't do that on this like slide joint. Maybe that's why we have the more cylindrical things. But man, I love this ball peg. This makes a really good tight fit. It holds it in there, but gives you all the range of motion. So yeah, I think this piece is going to be utilized a lot. So those are the pieces that I think are most going to be utilized. You know, then obviously you've got like this cage. You know, this is kind of a figure obscura type dio piece where I could see this being utilized in toy photography and stuff easily. Not only just for Mythic Legions, but for other toy lines. It's just a really cool kind of dio piece that we're starting to get more of. So that's a really neat one as well. So those are really the ones that I'm kind of geeked out on, that I think from a customizing standpoint are the best. And then, you know, as far as gripes, my main one is just the lack of detail on the armor. And I don't even think, like, you didn't need to make this an ornate thing, right? You didn't need to paint all the different, like in here, you didn't need to paint all the different details and the ornate details and the rivets and stuff. I think with this character, because she has this like diseased look to her, right? She's children of Necronominus. I think you could have just given this like a kind of dirty dry brush, like a mud dirt dry brush, or even a rust effect. And it would have been easy. You just throw a quick wash on there, or a quick dry brush, and it would have taken this armor and made it look cooler without having to spend meticulous time doing all those paint apps. Because I know, you know, adding like the little paint hits and stuff adds price to this figure. And so when you've got all these other new tooling and everything, you're trying to keep the price down. But I think just a quick rust effect or dirt dry brush would have really made this thing pop a little bit more. So that's my biggest gripe about this figure. And then I really wish those front legs would have had the same peg as the back legs. But other than that, like, this thing is just absolutely loaded. There's so many cool parts in here. You know, the figure itself is neat. Like, the fact that this lady, first of all, she's a child of Necronominus. She can control Beast. She can control the Trapiculi. She comes with this whole menagerie of parts. Like, it is just a really cool character as is. But then you look at all the new tooling in here and it's like, man, this is just a customizer's graveyard of cool stuff. Man, it's just awesome. So that is it. I don't want to keep going too much on this one because I could love on it all day. But right now, let's go ahead and put this thing back together, and we're going to do it in fast motion. So here we go. that was fast motion. It did come out of that because I've got a couple things that I'm going to do not in fast motion for you guys. First one is I noticed that her ankles were a little loose this way and a little loose this way, right? So I'm going to do a couple quick fixes here for this. I wanted to show that off. So a couple things for loose joints. I've talked about this before. This is, you can barely read it anymore. I've been using this one bottle for a long time. This is Kiki's. It's called Kiki's, Kiki, fixed loose joints. And one bottle will last you a long time. So just FYI. You can usually get these off of eBay. I know there's a different version on Amazon. It's not Kiki's, but it's kind of similar thing. It's a smaller bottle. You don't get as much for your money. You're better off just getting the Kiki's. This one bottle has lasted me like the last 4 years. So just FYI. And what you can do is you just take off the top here. It comes with a little needle that you push down in here to kind of break up anything that has kind of solidified. So you just kind of break that up a little bit. And then you can kind of put that into a situation like this. So you just kind of, like on this, I want to fix this part, right? So what I'm going to do is like put this Kiki's kind of along the seam here. So I'm going to just get some of that out there. Put it in there. And then just work this back and forth, all right? You want to work it in real good because you're trying to get it inside that part there, right? This is like a ratcheted joint, but for some reason, especially on the 2.0s, they seem to be a little loose at times. So do the same thing on the back side. Just work it in real good. And then usually what I'll do is just grab like a Kleenex or something, just wipe off any of the excess on the outside because you're really trying to get inside the joint there, right? And then you just want to leave this just sit. Usually I'll leave it sit like overnight. By the next day, it is nice and tight and you can still move it and everything, but it tightens it up quite a bit. I've heard people using, floor polish and making their own and all this kind of stuff. And yes, there are different things that you could do. But this stuff, like I said, this one bottle will last you. It's lasted me like the last 3-4 years. So don't mess around with the other stuff. Just get this. It's the best. Okay, I'm telling you. One other thing that I did pick up that I've tried and basically the same thing as this thing. It's called a joint strengthening pen. I also got this off of eBay. Works similar to the Kiki's. Kiki's you can get into a lot of tight spaces. This one you can't get in as much like a tight space, but it will work for what we're talking about. So you just kind of shake it up a little bit. And then when you open it up, you can see I got a little crusties here on the end, but it's just the pen itself. And basically what you do is you push it down a few times and that'll get the stuff to start flowing. Okay. And then once it's flowing, then you can kind of rub this on the joint similar to what we did with the Kiki's. So we'll just kind of open this up and you just kind of like do this along here. Right? And then work it back and forth. Try to work it in a bit. Same thing with the back side. Okay, hit that up. And then just work it in. So this does work. It's not bad for these kind of joints. If you have something where you need to get it inside something or whatever, this doesn't work as well. It's okay. It's if you need something like on the go, like let's say that you're traveling or whatever, and you don't want to bring your Kiki's with you, and you just, this is easy to just kind of throw in a backpack or something, this will definitely work. But Kiki's is the best. And like I said, same kind of thing. You just work it back and forth and then wipe off any excess. And then just let that sit. And then that'll kind of, solidify a little bit. It's not going to lock it in place. It's not like glue or like super glue, but it's going to make it a tighter fit. So I'm put those to the side for now. Other than that, I've pretty much got Belualith together. Here she is. This may be controversial. I know there's a huge no nose debate And I honestly was on the side of no nose with many other folks until I interviewed Sherry, who painted this figure. And I asked Sherry the question, nose or no nose? And she said she prefers the nose. And since she kind of helped bring this character to life, I figure if that's the right answer for Sherry, that's the right answer for me. So I'm going to go with the nose look. Obviously, we don't have the feet in there yet. Actually, I can just pop those in because, you know, I just don't need to articulate it yet. But let's go ahead and do that. So this is the overall look of the figure. Now, you know, back to kind of some of the stuff that I was saying on this about the armor and everything. Once you have the belt on here, the pauldron, the you know, the thing for the bird and everything, you know, you really don't see the armor too much. That being said, I do feel like a little rust effect, some dirty dry brushing, something would have gone a long way on this. But that being said, there's a lot of still paint apps and soft goods and everything that really makes this character, like, pulls it all together. So really cool look for her. Obviously, she still has some other stuff going on, but I wanted to do that in not fast motion to show you because it is so unique that I didn't want to just blow through that. So first on this cage, right? This part, putting this together, pretty easy. You just pop that together. This, you just pop this top in, no big deal. For the snake, I am going to heat it up because, you know, it basically can go on here like this, right? But I would like the tail to kind of wrap around this a little bit more. And so in order to do that, I'm going to heat this up so it's a little bit pliable and then wrap it around the tree branch in the way that I want it to, and then just let it kind of sit there and you know, harden that way. So I heat this up real quick. Once again, this is a softer material, so it doesn't take much to kind of heat it up and make it pliable. You want to be careful not to, you know, make it to where you ruin it or anything. So I get it in the position that I want, kind of wrap this tail around like so. And just kind of hold it in place there for a little bit. Now, what you could do if you wanted to, you could put this in a freezer, or, you know, wrap a rubber band around it or something, put it in a freezer, and then it'll kind of harden in that way, right? And then once it cools and it's no longer flexible, no longer pliable, it'll just kind of stay there. I do think it would have been cool if this had an open mouth, like with fangs hanging out and stuff. Like, that would have been cool, but this thing's still pretty neat. So let me see, do I have a rubber band around here? I do on my files, so let me grab that out real quick. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to use the wire that came with her. And what I'm going to do is just kind of hold this down, the snake down to the tree itself. So let's do that. Let's wrap this around like this. So I'm just kind of holding it there in place and letting it, you know, kind of solidify. I could even heat this up a little bit more if I wanted to, like, you know, make it pliable again. But let's see, do I want, because if I make the tail go around a little bit more, then it may come out the front. Yeah, let me do that. So I'm gonna heat this back up while it's kind of twisty tied down there. So. I'm just going to wrap this tail just a little bit more around here and then up the front. So kind of like that. And let's see, I guess I could use another twisty tie. that. So just kind of letting it sit like this, and you know, once that cools and everything and it's no longer pliable, it'll just kind of stay in that pose, and then we'll pop it up in that bird cage. So putting that to the side for now. We're gonna put Belualith this side, and we're gonna focus on this Chimera because I want you guys to see this. So first things first, I'm gonna work on this head, which I think is more of kind of like a saber-toothed cat, if I had to guess. And you can see, like, here's where it was glued in. Here is the jaw, so there's like a little key that kind of slides in here, and it kind of glues like that, right? So you may have seen in the fast motion, I use parchment paper. If you just tear off a little strip of it and you use that when you're like holding things together, your fingers won't stick to it. So that's a little trick I picked up from Alan Hopp's Vine Jungle Figure Factory. He does amazing work. He actually works in the haunt industry. If you go to Stilt Beast Studios on YouTube, you can see some of the stuff he does, but he does some really cool stuff. Like, probably one of the coolest day jobs that I know is you know, working on like monster things all through the day and then coming home and working on customs. Just pretty neat. So put some glue on there. We're gonna pop this in kind of gently, so like this, and then we're just gonna use that parchment paper and hold that in place there and just make sure that it sticks. So give that about, you know, 10-15 seconds. You know, probably a little bit longer before you actually pop it on, but after about 10-15 seconds, you can stop, you know, putting the pressure on it and just put it to the side. Now that we're gonna do the same thing with this one. This one's got a little bit different key. So instead of kind of sliding in this way, it actually pops in from the bottom. So put a little dab of glue here, here, and then in that keyhole. Once again, if you did want to make this an open mouth one, you could slice this key off and then kind of make it, like, glue it like this with the mouth open. But I think we're just gonna kind of, I don't know, that is kind of a cool idea though. You know what, we don't normally do modifications on here, but we're gonna do that. What I'm gonna do is just heat this up a little bit first to make this easier to cut through. So give me a second. Just heated that up a little bit and get my X-Acto knife and very carefully kind of cut this key off and hope that the under side of there isn't too crazy to where we have to paint it. I mean, it's definitely white, but we might be able to get away with it. We'll see. So, all right, so we sliced that key off there. And now we're gonna glue this with more of an open mouth. So kind of like this. Maybe not like too far to where you see that, but just kind of like that. Just a little open mouth. So for that, I'm just gonna put a little glue on the side here. A little glue on the side here. And if I wanted to close it, I still could. Like if you cut that key off and then you're like, I don't know that I like that. You could still, you know, close it. You just wouldn't have that key to lock it in place. But we're gonna kind of keep it like that. I think that's pretty good. And then use our parchment paper. Kind of hold that in place. And then, so that's kind of what we're looking like. It looks like his jaw might be off a little bit. I'll try to twist that. Well, it's still a little moldable still. So there we go. So not bad, a little bit open. Now, if I wanted to, I could go in there with a little bit, you know, some darker, like bone color paint on the inside of there and darken that up. But I think that's gonna be okay. We'll see. So there's that head. Next we have the snake one coming off the tail. This just has the two little mandibles on there. So just a little dab of glue in here. Make sure I got the right one. That's for that side. This is for this side. Pop this in. I did get a little bit of excess coming out the top here. So I'm gonna grab one of these little Tamiya swabs. I believe this is it's like 8105 or something like that. Little pointed swabs you get on Amazon. The thicker ones are 06, and then this one is 05, but I don't remember the other numbers. I'll try to get it and put it in the description. You see I got a little bit coming out the bottom there too. So grab a little bit of that off of there. Okay, same thing on the other side. So maybe just a smaller dab of glue this time because that started popping out. Make sure you line it up right. There we go. And then I'm going to grab my parchment paper. Just hold both of those sides in there for a second. Let that solidify, harden up. Okay, so then there's that look coming off the tail. So I'll put that to the side. Next, we'll go to the torso. So this is the kind of neck collar piece. This is going to go in here like so. It looks like it fits in pretty well, so I don't need to heat it up or anything. Just need to throw some glue on this guy. So same spot that it was glued in before. And then we'll just pop this guy right in there. Hold that together. I don't think there's anything that's going to leak out on this, so I don't need parchment paper. I can just kind of squeeze that together. And then the next piece is going to be this spine. So this goes out the back. Now this one was a little bit of a tight fit, so I think I might have to heat that up in order to make sure I can get that in there nice and tight. Like that. So, you know, it took a little work, and while you're dealing with glue, you don't want to be doing that. So let me heat that up just a hair. Okay, now I'm gonna put just a bit of glue in there. And then slide this spine right up in there. No splooged out, so we're good. Don't need parchment paper. So now we've kind of built the back of this thing. So we got the front, the spine. Next we've got the hip joint, and this kind of goes in like that. So this metal piece kind of hangs out the back side. So like so. Once again, I'll probably heat up this piece, throw a little bit of glue in there. Just a little bit of heat. Dab of glue in that keyhole, some along this slit here. And then just kind of snap this spine in right there. Come on. There we go. Get my parchment paper. I don't think any came out, but get my parchment paper and hold it in place. Just check around, make sure I don't get it lined up correctly. So this is the kind of the base body of the Chimera now. Now, we're going to attach the tail, the legs, and the neck. Neck's pretty easy. Should be able to just kind of slide that right in. You can heat it up if you feel like you need to, but you shouldn't. And I don't know if it curves. I think it goes forward like that because they're kind of coming at you. The back legs should pop in pretty easily, but we just glued that part. I'm going to work on the front legs first. So you got to heat that up. Pop in this one. Pop in this one. Tried to do two at once. Yep, it worked. Sweet. So you can kind of see those front legs, what they look like. All right. So it's going to be kind of a static pose based on the shape of them. But, you know, you still have some articulation. It's just going to be like what's going to look good. The back ones, I don't even know that we'll need to heat up. So let's try to pop those in. Yeah, that's a little bit flexible material that you're popping it into, so it's not too bad. And then for this part here, you want to be really careful with this nubbin on here. If you're trying to take it off or put it back together, you don't want this little nubbin breaking off. That's going to cause you some problems. So don't heat this up, heat this up. So we're going to heat up the hole. Anytime that you've got, we call a male-female connection, you want to heat up the female connection, not the male connection. So heat up the hole, not the peg. So once again, though, we still got these vertebrae and stuff, so you want to be careful not to melt any of that. So as you see when I'm heating it up there, I am using a heat gun, which is most likely method to melt something because it's hotter than a hairdryer or the, you know, like hot water. But if you keep it moving and you don't hold it in one place too long, you should be good. So there's kind of that Chimera look. So, you know, you've got, you know, based on the way that the feet are, you kind of pull this one back a little bit, kind of put that one forward. So you can kind of have this look here, and, you know, it looks like it's kind of turning this way a bit. Would have been nice if this was a ball joint here to where you kind of have a little bit more articulation. But once again, this still is a softer plastic. So if you wanted to heat it up and kind of turn it this way, you can. If you want to turn it this way, you can. Like, this is still a flexible material. You're just going to have to add some heat in order to get there. So let's see, move this one forward. Yeah, do like that. Okay, so we're going to pop the heads on there. Should be good now. I'm going to add a little bit of heat. We'll make this one on this side because we're going to have it kind of turning this way. And this is the one that we didn't modify, right? And then have the other one in the back. This is the one that we did modify. It does have a little bit of a white spot in there, but I think for what we're doing, we'll be fine. So, ended up getting the chain kind of wrapped around this guy. So that's kind of the look we've got there. If it's like turning towards something. And then pop this one on the back. I'm just gonna add a tiny bit of heat of this because you don't want these mandibles melting or getting misshapen. So tiny bit of heat. And then pop this on the tail. There you go. So now everything, you know, with the way that the shape of the spine is and stuff, we've got everything kind of turning towards this way, including the, you know, the kind of snake tail. So it's like if whatever it was facing was, you know, right here, and it's kind of all turning towards it, like so. So very cool. Now we should be able to take this wire off of the snake. We've got this, it should be in good shape by now. So I'll take this off, take this off. Okay. So now that shape is kind of, that snake is in the shape that we wanted, where it's kind of wrapped around that a little bit more. And then we'll just kind of pop this on here. So there he is in the cage. Very cool. I think that's good. That is pretty good. So that's the overall look we've got. All right, folks, so that is Belualith. From the Necronominus wave of Mythic Legions. And if you haven't picked this thing up yet, you really need to. If you have picked it up, you probably need to get a couple more, because just the amount of parts on this thing. I mean, we're a customizing channel. We talk about customizing. The amount of stuff on here is absolutely ridiculous. From the belt, the shoulder pad, the cage, the Chimera, the bird. There's just so much goodness on here that it's ridiculous. Man, she is good. She is just a really awesome figure. So that'll about do it. You know, I really can't wait to see what you folks do as far as creations with the Chimera parts, with her belt. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of creations come out of this. So if you liked this exploded figure review, we do have other ones that are listed in a playlist. We've got an exploded figure review playlist. We have other playlists for the different segments of the show. We've got the How They Do That series. We've got the travel toy videos. We got tools and techniques for customizing. So if any of those interest you, there is a playlist for those for you to find them. Also, if you haven't become a member of the channel yet, that's something you can do. It's $1.99 a month. Get you early access to some videos, get you entry into some giveaways that we do, and you get early access and a discount on the Art by Akerman paintbrush set. This set here is really great for customizing beginners, experienced people, whatever. It has 10 different brushes in there, from some flat angle brushes. You've got some liner brushes, detail brushes, and then some dry brushes. So anything that you want to customize 1/12 scale, this is probably going to cover all your needs that you have. And you get that for $15 shipped if you're a member for the first set. And each set after that, we'll talk about it. They will be at shows. I found out we're going to be doing like a painting session at Jolanta coming up here in September. Also, we'll have them available there and at Legions Con. So if you're going to either of those two cons later this year, you will be able to pick them up there for $20. And then eventually they will be on Wolf King Customs as well. So that's really about it. Like I said, I'm very stoked about this figure. It took me a while to get into it because I was just so intimidated by all the different things. It took me about, like I said, 3 or 4 times recording all the different parts to make sure that what I was telling you was accurate, because I didn't want to have any false information out there, and just to make sure that I had everything exploded to the max degree that we could explode it. So hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, folks, keep creating. Art by Akerman.